Welcome back, everyone. And as I always say, I'm so glad you're here. It gives me some encouragement to continue to research these trials, although I love to do that. And we have 3 points today we're going to talk about, and then a couple of things of note. The two ladies that are at the center of this trial, although we have so many witnesses on both sides, took many notes. I can do a deep dive if you want to put that request in the comments. But what I would like to do today is just kind of compare and contrast Dr. Sally Smith and Cathi Beady. They've been deposed many times. Dr. Smith has been deposed at least 5 times. She's already settled with the Kowalskis. So a friend of mine, Rob from Robin Lumber, talks about depot scarring. You learn quite a lot from being deposed and watching and kind of adjusting what you want to do. So we're going to talk about that. I'm sorry you have to look down. We'll mention our jury questions that we're getting. We'll look at the current testimony and trial. And then I have some concerns about privatizing Department of Children and Families. It's not that way where I live here in Texas, but I've started kind of researching to check. And then finally, we'll talk about medical child abuse terminology as opposed to psychological from a psychiatrist or a doctor of psychology that would diagnose something like Munchausen syndrome, or the newer term is factitious disorder or factitious disorder by proxy. So we'll look at that. These two main characters we have been watching for, Dr. Sally Smith, and I'll throw some pictures up on the screen so you'll get a variety of different views of these people, and Cathi Beady. So if you don't know, Dr. Sally Smith is let me see how to describe that. She's got a number of hats, but she has a private practice, or at that time she did. She's no longer practicing. And she researches and investigates child abuse for 2 hospitals. And one is for the hospital that Maya was in. Johns, I always forget that S. Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Some people are just calling it JHatch. That's easier, works for me. And she has privileges at another hospital. So she has 2 badges that she wears, and she works in private practice. There was Suncoast, I believe was the name of the one that's now shut down. And she worked as a pediatric medical doctor, and her specialty is researching child abuse. So that is Dr. Smith. Then we have Cathi Beady. She was the one, if you recall, or if you haven't watched, that is a social worker that reported so much of this. She stayed almost attached to Maya, and there are some concerns about that. Apparently, when Maya was moved to a different floor, the social worker on that floor would have taken her case, and they would have handled things the way that that particular person in social work does. So there was a record saying that she had requested to go with Maya because of the complications with this case. But on examination, both times, Cathi Beady has said that she was assigned. She had a large caseload. She was assigned to stay with Maya because of all of the complications with supervised visits and telephone calls. So that remains to be seen. Now, let's talk about Dr. Sally Smith. I know I told you just a little bit about what she does. She, I don't like to throw shade. I've already talked about that a little bit, but I do want to be honest and just share with you what my perception is. And if you don't know me, I'm Shelly, a first year flower farmer. It looks like I won't get to do year 2 this year, but I'm looking at some land. So possibly the following year. So for a while, I'll just do some court cases. There are there are several. The Adelsons is just starting, maybe on the 3rd day now. Huge case, crazy twists and turns. So we'll look at that later. But with Dr. Sally Smith, like I said, she's been deposed 5 times. And then she was on the stand as a witness on Friday. She, darn it. In my own mind, I would say she came across as a bulldog. That's obviously probably not a fair way to characterize her. But she absolutely did not back down on anything. Now, the cross was very good. She was a defense witness. The cross did a fabulous job of really poking into what kinds of things she did not do to be an objective investigator and to take her information to the court for the judge. She left out, 3 medical doctors who had diagnosed Maya as having complex regional pain syndrome. I think there was one. She put a little information, but she did not reveal in that report their diagnosis. And when asked about it, she indicated that it was totally irrelevant. That so rather the cross or the prosecution for Maya's team, rather than the job description of gathering information, putting it together to put before the courts, the attorney challenged her and said, wait, you're not the investigator. You are the judge and the jury, and you made the diagnosis of medical child abuse. Now, that's a term I haven't heard very much, and maybe it's trending now. But typically, like I spoke of earlier, you have to have an evaluation by a psychologist or psychiatrist, and they're usually very detailed and in-depth, to diagnose something like Munchausen by proxy, or to diagnose something like the newest term they're using, but the others still hold on, as the factitious disorder by proxy. That part just means that your caregiver is the person that's making you sick, and there's emotional tie in there, and that's kind of a complicated situation. But there's no evidence anywhere that there was an evaluation. Wait, I think there was one that was a brief evaluation that Beata went to, and they detected absolutely no mental health issues. There was no diagnosis. The reports show that she was a normal, caring mother. So that's kind of where we are on that. I do not know. Maybe you can put it in the comments below. But I will tell you this, just from my own perception of how Dr. Sally Smith, how she rolls, is I don't want her near my child. I think she's got a ton of confirmation bias, and she's looking for child abuse. And I will concede that when the Kowalskis took Maya to the hospital, I will definitely concede that yes, there are some concerns. Beata was very insistent with being a registered nurse. She was telling them exactly what she wanted them to do and refused their basic testing that would rule out some other things. So, yeah, there are some concerns there. But that doesn't mean that she's a child abuser and taking her away, taking Maya away from her family for, I think it was 87 days. It turned out to be 90 something before her mother took her life and said that um, on her note that she left, that she could no longer stand being treated like a criminal, um, indicating obviously that she was a caring and loving mother, and this hospital has pushed them to bankruptcy. So there are several things in that letter, and you definitely know where Beata Kowalski, Maya's mother, stands on the issue. So let me check, um, so I don't lose my thoughts. We compared, oh, just a few more things about comparing the depots. Sally Smith and Cathi Beady were the depositions. Many times they appeared quite arrogant and almost like appalled and offended that someone would question their work. Uh, so you'll see that in their facial expressions and things that they say. So when we compare that, those depositions, into our testimony at this trial, Dr. Sally Smith did do a few things to kind of fix herself up a little bit. And she was a little more careful on making really hateful faces. So she did a little bit. She changed. But she still had the very same attitude. And that she knew everything, that this was the right thing to do, and that she diagnosed her as medical child abuse. And oh gosh, I need to cough. I guess I'll cut that out. Now, Cathi Beady changed so much that I stopped this morning and said, what? Wait, did she just say Miss Beady? Because she was condescending, looking down her nose during the depositions, and almost rude. She was offended, obviously. But today, Monday morning, she came in with a dress with pearls and a new haircut, and her face even looked a little better. I don't know what kind of change was there other than maybe just makeup. But during the witness, during the time she was on the stand today, of course, she looked totally different. But there I go again. I'm so sorry. But she was composed. She was polite. She was kind. She was forthcoming. And but she did not validate Maya's testimony in so many different little places. She said, no, I would never do that, regarding sort of making Maya get into her lap. That was when she said that Maya asked for that. So that is only one little tiny example. And like I said, we can dive deep if you want to. I guess I need water. My coffee's over there. Okay, jury questions. This has been going on for a while. As the prosecution laid out their case, so many people you could tell had already discounted what the hospital's case was going to be, and a lot of the jurors came at the defense case pretty aggressive. You see, we can tell there's a medical professional just from the questions and the way that they are written. But it's sort of like a incredible cross examination that the jurors are the questions that they're asking and the information that they're desiring. So it gives us a lot of information about how the jury is viewing this testimony. Now, okay, I have concerns about the government contracting out and privatizing. We call it the Department of Children. Well, I guess that's the same there. Safety issues, if they're in an abusive situation. I'm in Texas, not in Florida, but as far as I know, all the research that I did, I couldn't find a place in Texas that had contracted out to a company those services. And the reason I'm suspicious about this is, so if, let's say, Dr. Sally Smith was the sole owner of her company, then it stands to reason, and I'm not for sure, you can't quote me on this, these are just some ideas, stands to reason that she would gain income from diagnosing Maya as a medically abused child. Now, I'm not sure. I want to research a little bit more. But once you start throwing money in there, this is a complicated and complex case. So that's my concern about privatizing. I would like to find out what, oh gosh, now I'm working on my collar. I need to focus. Squirrel. I have that neurodivergent brain as well as many other people. And then you probably remember that I've had a stroke and regained my speech, and I still have places that need a lot of work and touch up, but I started filming this channel as a way to work on some therapy and hopefully continue to improve. Last part. Oh, these are just some notes, which I was going to give at the first. I'll put it up on the screen. This is a sensitive case for people who can be triggered regarding the possibility of parents that may be abusing their children. And of note, I've been moving, and everything is, well, a few things are put up. I'm going to say 5% to 10% of the things have been unpacked and organized. But just trying to find makeup. I couldn't find my makeup, but I did find some old things that I had not thrown away, set aside for emergencies. So today was our emergency. And I would love for you to like this video so that it'll raise up in the algorithm, and people that are interested in following this case would see that video in their lineup. And if you could, we're only a few subscribers away from our first milestone. And like I said before, it's unbelievable. I'm so thankful. And I love reading each and every comment and taking the time to understand where you are coming from, what ideas that you have, what questions that you have. I probably won't be able to answer them. I could give my thoughts. So, yeah, thanks again. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.